killed him.
Appearances can be deceiving, but...
Look, he awakened. They're in a stupor. They're not under Joko's command. We won!
Did you? The rumors of my immortality are drastically understated. Oh, Commander, you look so disappointed, so impotent. I feel for you. I really do. But let's be honest. You knew in your heart. Fear not. The world will not forget you. The scars you've gouged into it spell out your name for all to see. I confess I was happy to take credit for your victories. But did you ever stop to wonder what that says about you? That so many bought what I was selling. They call me a monster, and you a hero. The world expects Palau Joko to dare to throw reality into chaos. But surely, no mortal would be so monumentally stupid as to destroy a dragon, the life force of this world. Let alone two, and a god to boot. Perhaps they will finally thank me for luring you to me, so that I may save the world from you. And once you're gone, everyone will flock to my embrace. They will all love me, Palawa. Ignatius!
Praise Joko.
Maureen! What have you done? Are you...
Maybe we leave her be. She's got a lot to digest.
That makes two of us.
Commander, you should have seen it! The primeval queens and their ghost army wiped out the third-generation plague bugs. The awakened are all disoriented, throwing down their weapons, screaming, crying. Oh man, what's Maureen eating?
Her dinner.
Okay, but that's not... I mean, it wasn't... Oh, boy. Oh.
It is. It was. Tell everyone to give the Awakened a wide berth. We still have a lot to mop up out there.
Will do. I need some air. Yeah.
Is it over? Oh my.
Great. She's big enough to eat people now.
Do not mess with Ori.
Is she done yet? Oh, no. No, are we really just gonna stand here while she eats the guy, huh?
Well, I'm sure you'll all be happy to know the third-generation epidemic has been averted. Just a bunch of first and second-gen bugs to deal with out there. Why is everybody so quiet? Oh, look at all these pestilence samples. Jackpot.
Get whatever data you need. We'll be burning all plague-associated materials.
What? Why?
So, In case you were wondering, Joko was wrong.
About me being a villain?
E-P-I-D-E-M-I-C. Kabram!
Kabram!
He did have a point about you. You do cause chaos. Well, we do.
We are a we, Bram. Like it or not.
Those are my only choices?
Those are our only choices. Come on. We have a lot of cleanup to do out there.
Watch out!
What happened?
No one else utterly disturbed by that.
And that was the end. That cutscene was absolutely amazing. Nolan North, yeah, you're right. Nolan North does a fantastic job with Joko. And the sound, just the entire sound design of that entire cutscene is just it's amazing. Every time he just hits the staff on the floor, and you just hear this echo, this boom, boom, boom. The ominous nature of Joko finally comes through. He finally feels like a menace. I absolutely loved him, and then he gets smote. He just gets smited, eaten by Irene. What the happened there? Finally, it's been so long. It's been 3 episodes here, and a Path of Fire expansion for me to realize how menacingly Joko can be, and is, and has been. And then he dies. Just dies. I didn't see that coming at all. I didn't see it coming at all. It does have a few, let's just say like that, interesting implications, because myself, and probably everyone else was expecting Joko to be the main villain of the entire season, but this is not the season finale, however grand it might seem. This is just seemingly the halfway mark. So where are we going from here? Well, it seems like, and if you've paid attention all throughout the story of the episode 3, I will venture to guess that our next opponent of some capacity is going to be Irene. She's going to be the interesting factor here, because all throughout the story, all throughout some of the earlier steps, it's pointed out that her behavior, her personality has changed slightly after she consumed all of the magic from Balthasar. They imply that she's been more aggressive. She's got alterations to her personality which she wouldn't have pulled through earlier on when she was all cutesy wootsy. That's the god of war. Now she's also consumed the eternal lich Palawa Joko, and we see all of that dark magic just fly into the center and explode. Like, you get this dark cloud around her right as it pops. Actually, I can show you guys here real quick as well. Let me find this real quickly. Then we can real quickly rewatch it. Not the entire thing, just like the very end there. That's the wrong one. And come on little PC. There we go. I think that's it. Right, I want to swap the scene here real quick then. That way you guys can follow along. Wait, there you go. Widescreen, there you go. Well, it's not showing, so there's that. That is something. Well, we're putting it on the other one. Wait, I think it's because... Alright, we're putting it on the other one. Here we go. Right. So right here at the end, we get this like huge explosion of like blue magic and whatnot. And we get Let me turn down this. And we get this like dark cloud around her. This dark cloud that just whoosh goes in. All of that black magic, all that lich magic is going into her. I think what we're looking at here is a potential future scenario with Aurene wherein she becomes much more of an aggressor to us, or something that we must handle or actively actually train, which suddenly makes a lot more sense with the whole the ghostly infusion. Suddenly makes a whole lot more sense with all of that dragon champion mastery line that we have. Now that is going to be the main theme of the rest of this whole season, is Aurene. Definitely. God in Joko's eyes were amazing. Yes, Joko's eye. That entire cutscene, this entire cutscene is so good. It really is. Like, it's just, Joko is so badass. This entire thing is so badass. Anyways, he says on top of that, because like I feel like that is where the story is headed. But on top of that, Joko does make a few extra the exclamations. He does say a few extra things, which I feel like we really should digest. Let's talk about that, guys. He says, let me replay this real quick. Here we go. Here it is. Oh, sorry.
Surely no mortal would be so monumentally stupid as to destroy a dragon, the life force of this world.
He draws the energy, the life force. He says, very, very interestingly, that the dragons, and we've kind of had this idea for a long while, that the dragons had something to do with the world of Tyria in some capacity, obviously, as like a force of nature. We've never actually had them explicitly explained as what they are. But right here, he says they are the lifeblood of Tyria. And then he pulls out the magic. They are essentially, to put it as an analogy, the hearts, the blood that runs through, let's say they are the hearts of Tyria, where magic is the blood that flows through their veins. And that's what we get with all the ley lines and whatnot. They are what binds it all together. If we kill all of them, the planet will die. That's what this implies. The lifeblood of this planet. And we've killed it. We killed 2. And a god to boot.
And a god to boot. Perhaps they will finally thank me for luring you to me.
Now this is an interesting scenario that he then puts us in. He talks about us as the villain. We are the bad guy. And for a long time, a lot of the players have speculated that that is exactly what we are. Like, we're doing the bad thing. But he points it out very remarkably here, that we are what's wrong with this world.
So that I may save the world from you.
I love the tone of this. I love it so much. Anyways, Palawa, Ignatius, Joko, and then he gets eaten. Are we the baddies? We are the baddies. That's what the most interesting thing to take from this is. But also, there's another thing. He mentions how long he's been around. He talks about he's seen the gods, he's seen the dragons, he's seen all of that. And to illustrate this even further, I'm gonna borrow a clip from Mr. Here we go, Mr. Perry. Here we go, SC Perry, one of the Snowcrow lads. He put this out earlier because I can't be asked to go and find it real quick. But let's listen to this as well. This happens after this story. These statues have a new dialogue.
somehow become unbound. Fear not, all things come to an end. Even perfection eventually gives way to the relentless drag of mundanity. The universe was once a perfect void, total timeless darkness that thwarted all else. But by its nature, perfection is precarious.
I will turn up the sound. I am sorry. Give me a second here.
All it took was a tiny spark to crack open the void of space. No doubt. All it took was a tiny... But by its nature, perfection is precarious. All it took was a tiny spark to crack open the void of space. No doubt, the same has become of me. I first died so long ago. The fig leaf was in style. I kid you not. I take great pride in all my posthumous accomplishments. Giving birth to the gods was probably a mistake. The vanity of youth. But Kralkatorrik was my first masterpiece. He was but a salamander before I got my hands on him. Such a cutie pie. Wait a moment. Gotta run. The guest of honor is here. Just found my torture theater. Come.
And then it basically picks up from when we enter the scene and we start to interact with Joko. Now, what he says here, he says three things. He says he is so old that the fig leaf was in style. There's no lore to that. It's basically just he refers to like ancient times where clothing wasn't invented. That's the time when he died. He's probably older than I even dare to guess. He has probably lived through the cycles of the dragons, and that's why he can comment on these things. And that's a really, really interesting detail here. Now, the second thing that he says is that he created the gods, and I'll get to that in just a second. But let's hear this real quick.
All my posthumous accomplishments. Giving birth to the gods was probably a mistake.
The vanity of youth, he says. I will analyze this real quick as if he's telling the truth, though there's a likelihood that he is telling a false story, and we'll get to that in a second, because that's not unlike him in any way, shape, or form. But let's look at this from a perspective of him actually telling the truth for once. Just to make this interesting, because then we can put on our tinfoil hats and have some fun here real quick. He says that he gave birth to the gods, and if he's as old as he believes that he is, that he says that he is, pretty sure he just tells garbage, probably. But if he's as old as he says he is, then it's possible that we know that all dragons and gods and liches, for that matter, is just an amalgamation of a whole lot of magic. That's why Aurene consumes him. She consumes his magic. She consumes the lifeblood that is him, magic. And so to create gods, what does it take other than just stuffing creatures or entities full of magic? The same goes for Kralkatorrik, which he says in just a second.
The vanity of youth. But Kralkatorrik was my first masterpiece. He was but a salamander before I got my hands on him.
He was but a salamander before I got my hands on him. Just a tiny little dragon entity of some sort that Joko just fed and fed and fed with magic. Let's imagine that to be the truth, because there is obviously the huge likelihood that everything that he's ever said is a lie, because we know that a lot of it is a lie, and that none of this happened, and this has nothing to do with the story or anything going forward. But if we assume that it's actually true, that Joko was there to create the gods and he created the dragons, or at least some of them, Krakator being one of them, then can we rightly assume that this Lich is, by all accounts, somewhat of a god himself? He was alive sometime, and so mortal, I guess, and then he died. I mean, all the gods are mortal as well. They're not... We defeated one. Same goes with every other immortal being in this universe. We can kill them, because they are just an amalgamation of a lot of energy. And if you can strip that energy, which Aurene does, she's able to kill the Lich. Regardless of anything, this is a super interesting conversation to have with the statue afterwards. Because it opens up a lot of possibilities for what Joko might have been and what implications his actions actually have had to the world of Tyria at large. And I, for one, am super excited, finally, to see where this story is headed now. Because we're moving away from something that turned out to be a super interesting, deeply rooted character with a lot of grit, which I really appreciated and loved at the end. And we're moving on to dragons, Aurene, gods, Lissa with the ring and everything that we got in that last instance. Is Lissa going to come back and actually help us? Because if we assume that Joko has created the gods or been there since the spawn of the gods, let's just put it like that, he knows Lissa. He knows Balthasar, which is why we didn't see the interactions between the two. He knows all of these creatures. And so for Lissa to help us, if we assume that she was actually the one that gave us the ring because of the emblem being her emblem on the ring, or sigil, or whatever we'll call it, then Joko may have been a big menace to the gods, and we've just done them a favor. And we might actually be seeing some more god action happening. And now that is extremely exciting to me. If there's any god that I really want to see, it's Dwayna. But I will take Lissa any day. And yeah. For now, the team has surprised me. The dev team has surprised me. And I can really, really appreciate that, because that was exactly what the story was missing. The story was missing some unpredictability. And we got that. We have that now. Everything's flying up in the air right now. The potential for this story and the outcome of it is immense. And for that, I really like this story. No matter if it was a really, really weird ending and there was some holes. But yeah. The queens have extra dialogue as well. Yeah, there's some extra dialogue. Let me swap back here real quick to the game, and we can hear the last bit of dialogue. Let me turn this down as well, because you guys will be getting everything at like a super high volume. Here we go. And she's got weird eyes, just lying there.
Did Blish get his arm back safely? Where is he anyway?
Yes, his arm is fine. He's back keeping an eye on the rift. He's not sure now that he should have done it. says maybe Timey's right. Maybe. And we shouldn't go around ripping holes in the fabric of space-time. On the other hand, you can't make science without breaking a few
Just one
pieces
more
of the
confirmation of
temporospatial
how great I
continuum.
am.
Speaking of which, there's so much here to study.
You know, I'd almost forgotten Maureen was a dragon. In my head, she was more of a person in dragon form. Of course, all this is certainly a visceral reminder. I hate to ask this, but do you think she would have done this before she absorbed Balthazar's magic? Or could have? It does seem to have made Krakatorik more aggressive, and it certainly changed her somehow.
She's still Aureen.
Perhaps you're right. It's easy to forget. She's always been the granddaughter of an elder dragon. Maybe this is just what they do.
This was exactly the thing that I was referring to earlier. That she's become more aggressive since Balthazar.
I don't know why everyone's so skittish around Aureen. Eating Joko was the only sure way. Makes perfect sense. Kinda wish I'd thought of it myself.
Rox, thank you for liaising between the Olmacon and our other forces. What you did was essential to our victory.
My pleasure, Commander. They really are amazing fighters. But they don't let fighting define them. One of the elders told me the wisest thing. Sorry, I don't mean to go on. Anyway, it was an honor to fight with them.
Speaking of, somebody mentioned here real quick, now that the Awakened are without a puppet master, will we get an undead playable race? I don't think we'll get an undead playable race, but what we might be seeing is actually Aureen taking over that same lich power. And if she goes somewhat rogue for at least an episode, say she becomes kind of raw or whatever, I don't know what to call it, she might be able to just take over the Awakened army, basically. And she's leading them.
So, Commander, the Ghost Army was mopping up when we came in here. They were really enthusiastic about it. But I don't know how long they're gonna stick around before they, ghost away or dematerialize. Before they leave, we should ask the Sunspears to watch for Awakened coming too, and make sure they don't hurt themselves or anyone else. I mean, it's fine right now while they're all sort of dazed, but what happens when they snap out of it?
I honestly don't know, Timey. But that decision's not up to just us.
The sigil that I mentioned just a second ago, by the way, is this one. This sigil has the... here we go. I showed it earlier here, but it has the mark of Lissa on her. The mark of eternal radiance on this little ring icon. Which is super exciting. But yeah, that's about all there is to this story, really. How do I feel about Dragon's Watch? I hate them, and the story would be 100% better without them. I find them as a necessary evil, so to speak. I feel like they're getting much more fleshed out as time goes on, and I can appreciate that. But they are a necessary evil to the way that the storytelling is done. They are usually the catalyst for information happening. And it would feel worse if that information came from new NPCs all over the world all the time. We would have no relations to ever go by. Now we have character progression and information getting shared between what is essentially your guild. And I like what they want to do. The execution sometimes falls short. So, but yeah, I understand why people can be a little bit annoyed with them. I think it would be cool if a bit of Joko's personality merged with Aureen. Yeah, I mean, just imagine. All right, here's a funny weirdness. Imagine he is eternal and whatnot, and her consuming him. Basically just turns him into like a revenant legend. And like Aureen starts channeling Joko as like a revenant legend from the mists, and like yeah, it can get funky if we assume that he's still alive. But I I would much rather assume that he's not alive and that he is just dead and consumed magic now, because that will give more personality to Aurene herself and the character progression that she can go through. A sarcastic, hilarious dragon. Whatever. Like, okay. Ever since here we go, Crystal Champion. Ever since the first episode, I've been wondering so hard what the Crystal Champion meant, because we have Aurene's head here, but we're not progressing through a mount. We're not doing like anything. It had nothing to do with the story as it was really going on. Aurene was giving us things. Aurene was whatnot. I feel like everything in the season is now going to tie into very heavily into Aurene, and not just as like a side story, as her story has felt like till now. Yeah. Then there's giant hearts everywhere. So there's that. But yeah, it's a really cool story. I liked it better. I'll be completely honest, I only really liked it because they really did Joko well. They really did him justice by the end. Like all this entire last mission like redeemed Joko for me in many ways, but it also kind of shocked me when he just died out of nowhere. Like it felt like it was just out of nowhere. Anyways, let me turn down all of this now, so you guys don't get blasted with it. Anyways, that was the story discussion. Scourges will not be too happy with Aenid giving Rev Joko as a legend. Yeah, the next